Here's an effect I like to call rolling oscillators. So this is an opportunity to get into the LFOs of our velocity and gate section. I've actually got the depth turned down so there's no LFO movement right now, but just so you can hear the synth. Here's how it responds to velocity. So as usual, velocity is hooked up to the filter. I've also set up the patch so you can hear short and long gate times. Let's turn up the filter a bit. What I've done is I've set both of the LFOs to dotted 16th. Now let's bring up the depth and hear what that sounds like. So both the note length and the filter are sort of oscillating and rolling together. I was just working on another example with Diva, with this cool FM bell sound. So here's a little trick I like to call shift to fifth. When we're working with Rhythmizer, it's quite possible we might never touch this pitch shift knob. And even when we're writing melodies, whether it's in the piano roll or playing on a keyboard, it feels like so often we're sort of centering everything around our root note. So this track is in the key of G sharp. So if I have a low probability of a scale note, we're going to just be hearing a lot of that root note. But what about bringing things up a perfect fifth? That will still keep everything in scale, but transposed up a fifth, which can kind of elevate our melodic center, and you won't get any sort of quote-unquote wrong notes here. While I'm here, I'm going to map velocity to this sustain. And now our velocity notes should be modulating that. If we want to do the same in the opposite direction, we can bring it down -5 semitones. So as well as creating melodies and random drum triggering and all that great stuff we've looked at, Rhythmizer is also really great for creating long, evolving pad sequences. Here's something I just threw together. So it looks like a lot, but it's actually very simple. I just have a bass drone being generated by Rhythmizer, and then I've got a second Rhythmizer, which is actually triggering 3 elements, strings and 2 different choirs. So just 2 Rhythmizers in action here. This bass drone is fairly simple, just giving it some low bass context. The key part of the setup is triggering 2-bar length notes. So all the notes are 2 bars long. I've also got the gate set to around 100 with no randomization. So the notes won't be too long or too short, they'll just be full extended notes. In terms of the melody, I've just created notes from a small range of the minor scale, and that's literally it. Over here in our pads, as I mentioned, I've just got this one Rhythmizer triggering a few different elements. Let's check out the strings. So again, I've got a very similar range of notes from the minor scale. I've just added a few on top. Again, we're seeing gate set to 100. Again, we're seeing 2 bar long notes and no extra grooves there. So every note is 2 bars long. The difference here is that we're using our polystacking. We're in random mode, so it means that these chords are made up of notes from our chosen scale. I've set the probability to 100, so we're always going to get a chord. I've set the poly to 3, so we're going to get a maximum stack of 3 notes on top of our melody. And that's about it. Now this choir is also being routed from the same Rhythmizer. The only difference is that I've added a pitch shift of 7 semitones, a perfect fifth. That's something we looked at earlier in the video series about layering sounds but pitched up a perfect fifth. So it's the same notes, but they're harmonizing. It just adds a really nice bit of interest and density. Then I've got this second choir here. I've actually just routed this from this previous choir. So that's being triggered by the Rhythmizer and it's got the pitch shifting on it. And you're also hearing there the fact that I added a little bit of bend mode. Just a tiny little bit. Literally just set to 1 for a tiny bit of wobble. And on top of all of that, I just added a sample from one of my sample packs of some swirling sine waves. Here's a couple of tips rolled into one. So first of all, let's take a look at how bend mode can be exploited to get this sort of classic psytrance sound. So if we head over to our synth, you'll see that our pitch bend wheel is going mad with the bend information we're sending to it. It's also really essential that we've got the bend range really maxed out here. And we can adjust the bend range in the synth, or we can adjust the bend amount in Rhythmizer. Same thing really. Can be used to sort of fine tune the sound as well as the pitch shift here. But there's another little tip here, which is using the gate bypass. So I've got 16th as our bass groove, but I've also dialed in extra 16th. Now why would I do that? If I turn off the gate bypass, you'll hear everything with this very quick gating. By bypassing the 16th there, means that we only have 16th, but some of them are incredibly short and some of them bypass the gate section altogether and will be a full 16th. We can even throw in some eighths. And again, bypass the gate section. So if I was to turn those off, everything would just be short gating. And again, we're just telling these two grooves to bypass the gating altogether. Here's a cool little trick for bend mode. I've pressed link, so I'm getting both scale notes and bend mode. I've got the rate very high, sync turned off, so it's a sort of FM sound. Let's turn the probability up all the way. Pretty full on. So let's bring the probability down, and now what we're hoping for is occasional bursts of a sort of FM wobble. So it's a cool way of getting little occasional bendy wobbles into your sound.